the landscape has changed significantly for agencies. It's been tough the last few years, and now the hosts have seen it too, right? So, it's been an interesting couple of years, and we're all trying to figure it out.
The Gutenberg editor, the block editor is amazing.
We're up against Adobe. So that is 100% an open source challenge that is always going to exist, but one we can absolutely do better at, especially at the hosting level.
I'm going to be sending these episodes to every hosting company I know out there because I know for a fact they're desperately eager to figure out what it is that agencies want. Welcome to Impressive Hosting, where we uncover the core tenets of great WordPress hosting. I'm your host, Jesse Friedman. Before we dive in, remember to check out impressive.host. It's where you can comment on episodes, ask follow-up questions, and submit questions for upcoming guests. You'll also find all the links to follow, like, and subscribe wherever you listen. Today, we are back with Brad Williams, founder and partner of WebDevStudios. We're having such a great conversation about the ways in which Brad is running his business, the workflows, the ways in he's evaluating hosting companies. And I'm going to be sending these episodes to every hosting company I know out there because I know for a fact they're desperately eager to figure out what it is that agencies want, because they're all trying to tailor their offerings to agencies and to provide new workflows and tools and bundles and things like that to help aid agencies. And Brad, you've been like a plethora of information. We went through that first episode so quickly. We talked a lot about the way in which you're evaluating hosts. But one of the things that we didn't really touch on, we kind of got into real quickly about managed hosting, but help me understand the way in which you operate your business and think about the workflows that you have to go through, and how a host needs to play into that. So I would imagine you're using some tool to help you manage updating plugins, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're using tools to keep an eye on security. Maybe you have Git deployments pushing directly to plugin repository. I don't know. But how does a host need to play into that? And how do they need to be adaptable and flexible to your workflow?
Yeah, I mean, it's important that a host does work with your workflow from a development standpoint, right? And as we know, there's so many different, that can mean so many different things, right? But at the end of the day, it's some way of like pushing code to different server environments, and there's a lot that goes into that. But, it's, again, hosts have so many different tools. Some are very similar, some are very unique. Some lean harder into the dev tools than others. I think some are more towards the kind of DIY like builders, drag and droppers, lean a little harder into that. But it's not just lean into everything, I guess. But, having one is making sure that any external tool is going to work with your service, right? So, you have to assume people are using GitHub or some kind of, external Git repository, even though a lot of hosts have that available and you could absolutely use it. Generally speaking, a lot of agencies like ours have their own workflow. They're going to use GitHub or their own Git servers or whatever, and want to be able to use some kind of deployment pipelines to push into those environments. So we use Buddy.works, really like it. We used to use Jenkins, but the amount of time we spent trying to get Jenkins like unbroken and like working at our size just didn't make sense. So we use Buddy.works. It's a great CI/CD system for deployment, so we can hook in all of our stuff, all of our checks, our passes, kick things back, whatever, all those great flexible rules you'd expect from your deployment pipeline. And we do want to make sure things like that are going to work and be able to push code up to those server environments. It is nice having some tools, within the host too, within the dashboards, like quick access, like PHP My Admin or something, just to spot check something on server. But really, in my mind, it's not, I guess it's more about not getting in the way of what we do and how we do it. And we're not like doing anything crazy unique. You know what I mean? Like we just do it how most, I think, developers and hosts would expect. So it's just making sure, let us use our tools the way we want to. And your tools are great, and I'm sure a lot of people use them too, but not everyone is. So that's just from our perspective. I'm sure other agencies maybe lean harder into hosting tools. But yeah, I like that. We keep our things somewhat external. Again, we're, platform, I say hosting agnostic, right? So if we lean too hard into one host and around our processes around their tools, then how does that work with other hosts? Now we have different processes for different hosts, and it just gets murky, right? So
yeah,
keep third party, keep it external, if you will.
Well, it's funny because you just touched on something that I think is really interesting. So when I talk to hosting companies, both on this podcast and at work, a lot of them want to convince an agency to bring on all of their customers and all of their clients into that hosting that hosting bundle. And, from their perspective, of course, it makes more sense, right? Because they make more money. You have one single point of contact for everything. But I think there's also, and they're probably going to be shaking their fists at me listening to this at home. But I think from an agency's perspective, there's probably a lot of value in the diversity of
Mhm.
hosting, and maybe even like thinking about it like diversifying your portfolio the way you would with like stocks, because there is no single point of failure. It allows you to test new things and
Yeah.
see who's doing what better. If some singular host that you have all of your clients on starts to struggle or run into a problem, or God forbid, like a few years ago there was a hosting company in Europe that one of the data centers burned down, and
All
they
right.
not only lost a significant number of sites, but they lost a lot of backups and things like that. I would imagine that that singular point of failure can be really scary, troublesome, fragile for an agency.
Mhm.
So, do you think about that? Like, is that top of mind for you? Thinking about making sure that you're, kind of diversified there.
I think it's top of mind in the sense of sales and marketing and those relationships around. The more hosts you're working with, the more opportunities you have for referrals from those hosts, for marketing opportunities with those hosts, maybe joint case studies because you have a client on that host, right? So if you're all in on one host, that's one host that you have those opportunities with. If you're working with, and I'm not saying work with 50 different hosts at that level, but
Sure.
if we have probably about 5 really tight hosts that we work with the majority of our clients. We have 5 opportunities to work with them on, those use case studies. We did an awesome one with Pagely on care.com work. We got another really cool one. I can't wait to come out from VIP of a really large migration we did, a migration for a project we did. That was a really big scale project. So like being able to have those uh, you know, those ideas where we can kind of jointly tell our story with the host, even definitely from the hosting side and the hosting perspective, is a huge benefit for us. So, and hopefully, benefit for them because it's showing how well they worked with that client and this agency and got them on the platform and solved, all the problems they had. So, now having said that, when we were younger and smaller, we did work closely with, like, one host, especially when we started having those issues where it's just, like, all point fingers and blah, blah, blah. We're like, we need just like we kinda said, we need to go all in on WordPress. We don't really say we had to go all in on one host, but we said we need to get better with a host or hosts, so that way we have
Hmm.
one we can at least recommend that we really understand inside and out. So, I think at a smaller business standpoint, working with a singular host, really understanding their platform inside and out and the tools they give you, building that really tight relationship, and they know all your business is there. I think earlier on in a business, I think that would still be a very wise idea. Versus trying to spread yourself. And again, this is when maybe you're starting out or much smaller, maybe it was just a couple,
Yeah.
team members. So I do think there's some strategies there, but certainly as you grow and you're looking to bring on more clients, I do think using multiple hosts is not all your eggs in one basket's interesting. I don't think of it quite like that, but it definitely, I think of it from that partnership and how can we, all of our company, all the hosting companies and us, bring on more clients together.
Yeah, yeah, right, right, right. Yeah, I mean, and I don't mean to ever say that a single point of failure is tied directly to infrastructure. Like, obviously, a having multiple points of presence and replication of data is super important.
Mhm.
And one of the core tenets of WP Cloud that we offer, right, is automated real time failover, so that we can replicate the content from one origin center to another, and then we can in real time reroute traffic if there was ever any downtime. But the single point of failure could be more than just the infrastructure. We talked about the importance of support, the importance of the tools that you're adding on, things like that. So like it can degrade your business if that hosting company starts to fail in any one of those areas. Just a point of clarity there, but at the same time, one of the things when I just asked this question, I was thinking to myself like, if hey Brad, like if I could convince a hosting company to come on and listen to this right now, what would you tell them that it's a pipe dream to get them to move all of your clients over? And then I kind of changed that question in my head because you answered it. And the question becomes more of like, where do you draw that line? Like, how do you define the difference between an agency that's just getting started and may benefit
Mhm.
from having a singular hosting company that they operate with to what is the line in the sand that makes you a larger agency or a bigger agency that maybe diversifying or having larger partnerships with hosting company actually
Yeah.
becomes important.
You know, just kind of thinking about the question as you're asking it. Like I don't it's funny because there's no real like as your business grows, there's no like moments where you like, it's not like school, right? Where you graduate a certain grade and you're like, I made it, or
Yeah,
I'm in high
right,
school
right.
now, or I'm on a
Yep.
college, and there's these like real definitive lines. There's definitely clear moments in the history of a company when big key moments happen, right? And change the trajectory or whatever. Like there's certainly those. And the longer you've been around, the more of those there are. But just thinking about like, saying, okay, at this point we knew. I think for me, at least for us and our path and journey as we grew, and especially earlier on, we talked about going to events, right? We talked about the community around WordPress. And that's what drew us into WordPress initially was the people. We were fans of open source, but we were using more than just WordPress with Drupal and other stuff. But then we went to a couple of work camps and started realizing like this is a cool group of people, right? Everybody wants to help each other. Like there's a lot of cool stuff going on here, and just kept going to more. And then we started speaking at word camps and like really getting involved. And that's when I started
Plus,
really
the after
getting out
parties
and
were awesome, and
the after
the late
parties,
nights at
like
the bars.
the hallway tracks. And sometimes you're just hanging out, but ultimately what you're doing is you're building a relationship, right? Even if you're not
Right.
talking
Yeah.
shop necessarily. Like we were like, yeah, remember that time we had after the after party, we were getting ice cream in some random city and we couldn't remember what city it
Yeah.
was. Like that's
Right.
the memory, right?
Yeah.
But that's when we started meeting more hosts. And honestly, again, not the hard sells on either side, but just kind of get to know these people. And I
Yeah.
think that's when it said, hey, we should work, we should work together. We should work, so I think kind of it just inherently happened as we started getting more involved in community and WordCamps and being around hosting companies more, especially as they're starting to pay more attention to WordPress, right? As it was growing up from a blog to a proper CMS around WordPress 3.0. Nerd alert, he knows exactly when it happened. So I do know where that line was at when WordPress became a CMS. But again, it's everybody passed different. But I think that's when I was like, look, there's definitely a marketing and sales angle around these partnerships and getting closer with these hosts. Yes, I want to
Yeah.
bring in more clients. Yes, I want to make them successful. And yes, I want to make more money. Right. So that's at the heart of all the things we're doing. But it starts with, oh, hey, maybe we should be talking to this host or that host. Oh, there's a new one on the market. Let's see what they got. Maybe it'll be a good
Right.
solution. And maybe they're hungry to like want to do some guerrilla marketing together, joint, webinars or whatever, because we love doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
That
No,
was
that
our
makes a
path.
lot of sense. Like, yeah, it doesn't sound like there's a single line in the sand. It's not going from 20 clients to 100 clients. It's not. It also depends on the founder of the company, like yourself, making the
Right.
decision to say, "Hey, we can actually venture off and do more here, or we can, do some growth hacking here by buddying up or doing a case study together." So, it's funny because I keep talking to the agents, to hosting companies, and they're so eager to figure out agencies, and they're so desperate to try and bring in more agency business. And they constantly are saying like, how do we get into this area? How do we convince them to move? How do we? Let me ask you this: if I were able to like extract from you information that I could give to a hosting company to help them understand your business a little bit better, what things would be really interesting to you, if a host were to come to say, like, "Hey, we could do this together." You mentioned in the previous episode, co-selling, like actually
Mhm.
getting on the phone and talking to a client together and walking them through it,
Yeah.
showing a group like coming together as a singular force. You mentioned maybe case studies or like guerrilla marketing tactics, but like what else? What else is out there that a host could be doing? Maybe something they're not even doing today that you would be like, you would jump at the chance to work for the host to kind of get the word out or to drive business or something.
Yeah, I mean, one area we're pushing harder into, and this is really specific to us because of the product we build, is around the idea of a lot of the projects that have been walking in the door in the past year or two are classic legacy sites. And the one of the top things on their list is we want to get to the block editor, but we don't know how, right? We want to get to the block editor. How do we get there? We're on an old website. So we've been working and converting sites from classic to blocks, right? And this has been a big focus of ours for the last few years. Um, Having done that for a number of clients, we started to realize this pattern and started the logic we were using internally to do this within our projects. We really gave a deep dive look at it and said we could actually productize this. So we built a plugin that basically allows you to run multiple themes on a single WordPress install. And what this has allowed us to do, and I'll get to the host point here real quickly, but it allows us to spin up a new block theme or take a block theme off the shelf on a legacy WordPress site, and they can start publishing content using that block theme right away, right? Because they can just tell that new theme where it's going to run. Only run on my post templates, only run on this one page or this one landing page, or only run on my LMS. I want to run an LMS theme over here, but something different over there. So it allows us to systematically over time, rather than the traditional, we got to rebuild your whole website. Got to rebuild your whole website. That's going to take some time and money. Rather than doing that, which is a much harder sell these days, we can chip away at it, right? So now we're
That's very
transitioning our
cool.
clients over 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, lower budget, lower investment, lower amount of their time, not just money, but lower amount of their investment of time, and less risky for them, right? They can just chip away at it rather than saying we're flipping the whole switch on Tuesday, you know? So
I
I've
would
been
imagine
talking a
it's
lot.
less stressful for you too to have
It is less
to be able to
stressful
do
because
it
again,
over iteration.
you're at your own pace or the client's pace, and it can really be kind of, you can pull levers on how quick or how slow you want to kind of move. So what's interesting to me is I've been talking to hosts and showing some of the hosts about this is we're on a mission to get everybody up to the block editor, because I firmly believe the way we keep people on WordPress is we get them on the block editor, because the block editor is amazing when you really get it and when it clicks and we start using patterns and things like that, and how, especially like our type of clients, it can rapidly produce landing pages in a matter of seconds, and no code, drag and drop, whatever they want to do without any developer support, when before it took weeks. Once they see that light bulb moment, that's all they want. It's all the marketers want. So,
Yeah.
so I want to work with hosts because I'm on a mission to get every site migrated. And this is a product, right? So this is a product my agency could use, but this is a product anybody could use. An agency, a host, a freelancer, you can use this, install it on your WordPress site, and start running multiple themes. So I want to work with hosts and really get this message out, right? And whether it's my agency helping you do that, or you're just taking the product off the shelf and doing it yourself, it's helping people get over the block editor. There's a lot of other use cases, as you can imagine, running a lot of different themes on one site. But that's really kind of the main driver behind what we're doing. So I think that'd be a lot of fun with hosts to do webinars to show this off, especially their clients that they know are sitting on legacy installs. They can see it on their side, right? How do we help get them up to modern WordPress so that they stay on WordPress and don't look at Wix and Squarespace and some of these proprietary platforms that we know long-term are probably not going to be good for them.
Wow. You touched on a whole bunch of stuff there
I
that is
just talked a
absolutely
lot there,
brilliant.
Jesse. I'm sorry.
I love it. No, and what's funny is that every single episode, it seems to come up that there's this underlying theme or narrative that we keep touching on, which is that when you give WordPress a shot, whether it's your first time or you're struggling to adapt or change or, upgrade, your alternative is not changing host or changing agencies, it's changing CMSs. And then that's where you end up at Squarespace or Shopify or
Right.
whatever. And it's great because this time I didn't have to say it. You said it. And I love that. Which is absolutely
I
amazing.
mean, if you're going to go anywhere, keep it open source, right? Go look at Drupal.
Right.
They're a great platform, at least keep it open source.
Yeah. I can't speak enough or highly enough about that. So, but, so you mentioned though, like, and I just want to take this tangent for a quick second, that the Gutenberg editor, the block editor is amazing. It's 2025. It's been out for a while now. Is that a spicy take at this point? Or have
No.
we kind of like finally as a community realized that it is a pretty amazing editor?
I mean, that's a good question. Is it a spicy take? The challenge with not having enough events is you can't keep your, ear to the ground quite as closely around this type of stuff. Like you can't kind of real time hallway track people and what you're hearing and buzzing in presentations and stuff. But I don't know, man. Like I don't think it's still a hot take. Site editor, absolutely. But Gutenberg itself, the block editor, I mean, it's here to stay. And at first I was like, okay, I don't know about this. And it had a bit of a bumpy start. But like you said, that was how many years ago? 7 years ago. It's been around.
It was
So, I mean, it is
right.
a polished, it is a polished editor. And is it perfect? No. But look at what we had. The WYSIWYG editor, which was anything but perfect, right? So like it is light years ahead of that. And again, when you really, one of the reasons I firmly believe WordPress has been so popular and will continue to stay popular is it's intuitive, right? Like there's ways to go with Gutenberg and block editor to make it even more intuitive. But at the end of the day, you can kind of fumble through it and publish a blog post. And I think that speaks volumes about WordPress and just the intuitiveness of it and why it took off and why it is still so dominant, even all these years later.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember exactly where I was the first time I ever saw the block editor. I was in a room with Matt and he's like, let me show you something. And he pulled out his laptop and Matthias had given him a prototype of what the earliest blocks look like. And the excitement on Matt's face was amazing, but I immediately recognized the value of it being that you're blending uh, the formatting and the structured data that allows for you to kind of replicate things over and over again and create patterns and all that stuff with the freedom of a blank canvas to move things around
Mhm.
the way that you want to. And so it was absolutely amazing because what we always wanted a WYSIWYG to be was this ability for you to just literally move things around and drag them and drop them
Mhm.
and use so what you see is what you get, but it was never really great, right? Whether it was WordPress or any other WYSIWYG out there, it was always problematic. It was always adding crazy HTML markup and semantics were out the window, and it was just a mess. But Gutenberg, I mean, it just blew me out of the water, and I was probably one of the earliest adopters of it. And then I started to recognize that the community wasn't super thrilled about
Mhm.
it. And I think a lot of that comes from a couple places. One is that, and anytime that things change, you know, people
Very
don't
true. Yeah.
adapt, right? The human nature, right, is that like we learn to live by patterns, and we operate in a way that we know exactly where things are and how they operate and and it doesn't cause any cognitive overhead to have to learn something new, and then all of a sudden you throw them into this whole new thing, and my goodness. Plus, people I think were worried about the disruption of themes. Themes are going to go away; they'll never be
Mhm.
around. That's not true. There's so many things that we were concerned, not we, but like the community was concerned about that I didn't actually personally um, you know, agree with, I guess. I didn't resonate with it. And so you're right though, but like, we've had a few years now, and I think I've lost track of like the pulse of the situation because it feels like there was just so much animosity, misdirected
Right.
animosity towards it.
And
And then
maybe
all
that
of a
is gone because
sudden,
we have lost track because we're not hearing it anymore, right? So maybe it's just
yeah,
not
maybe.
hearing it, so everyone has moved on and accepted it.
Yeah, but I mean I think it's one of the more brilliant things to come out of web design tools, since I don't know, Dreamweaver or something like that, where it became accessible that somebody could like build a website without having deep technical knowledge.
Yeah.
But the ability to build patterns, and then like, you think about incorporating AI into it. Like now the AI doesn't have to write code to develop a website, just needs to reformat, move around blocks, and configure things. So it's not about trying to build a website from the ground up using markup and CSS. And it's just about new patterns and templates and moving things around and configuring options. And oh man, I think it has this opportunity to like blow everything else out of the water. And then when you think about, Matt wanting to make it available to other CMSs, to
Yeah.
other, make it more of a standard on the web to just build things on the web. I don't know. I guess I'm gushing a little bit, but
I mean, I
I've
love
always
it too.
seen
It
it as
did take
something
me a
that
little
was
bit longer to come
revolutionary.
around to it, but um, I have been around to it now for a number of years, and it
Yeah.
was a shift as an agency owner. Like we've had these again, kind of lines in the sand or chapters, if you will, of kind of big changes in tech and how we build things. Gutenberg being one of the biggest, if not the biggest, right? AI is probably
Right.
going to be the biggest once we figure out what's going on there. But like these, like responsive web was a big one when that came, right? Like it's
Yeah.
a industry shift in how things should be made, right? And so we have to stay on top of that if we're the WordPress experts. So we lean hard into that. We lean hard into that in our proposals, how we talk with clients. Like, look, we use core WordPress, right? We don't overcomplicate it. We bring in plugins where it makes sense, and we lean into core WordPress hard. And that makes, future proofing as best you can, upgrades, like it just makes everybody's life easier. And the tools that are there once they see them, it's mind blowing. Like the tools out there, if you haven't seen it, like go download Ollie. It's one of my favorites to look at, the free version, and just start dropping patterns on a page. And it's mind blowing how
Yeah.
quickly that page comes together and you hit publish and bam, it's done. Right. So imagine customizing
Right.
that for any of your clients or yourself. It's a game changer. So big fan of it. And again, I want to get more people to it. There's so many legacy sites. I would love if there's any stats out there. I don't know if Automatic has some data in the back channels somewhere, but like, what's the
Yeah, that's an
breakdown of
interesting thing to
classic
look
versus
up.
Gutenberg and public data? It's got to be somewhere, but I got to believe, I don't, you think it's 50-50? I don't know. Like there's so many classic sites that are probably just sitting there. Right. So
Well, when I think about the number of sites out there that are just aren't getting updated on WordPress or have
Which is a
outdated
lot.
plugins because customers are just terrified to change anything because they got it
Yeah.
working and they don't want to touch it, right? Like, it
About the
makes me
worst thing
nervous,
you
but
could do is not touch software
ex-
over the time,
right.
especially, on the web. So that's about the worst thing you could do because there
Right.
will
And,
be
and
a day
another
when that
reason that we
website's
talk
going
about
down.
managed hosting being like the hosting company taking on the responsibility of keeping things up to date. So, maybe you have your own timelines of when you want to plug in to run as an update or something like that. You can create windows where they're automatically updated, or maybe they give you up to 2 weeks or 3 weeks to sort things out because you don't want to pull the trigger on day one. But I think the responsibility of the host is to make sure that things don't end up 2, 3, 4 years down the road and you have thousands of iterations of plugins and they're all out of date. And I can't
Hmm.
tell you how many times I've worked with hosting companies that have had to do massive updates
Hmm.
across large infrastructures and how painful and taxing that is. Yeah. But let's circle back to the projects that you're working on. It's really interesting to me that you've
Yeah.
carved out a niche here to solve for a problem of bringing people from the classic editor to the block editor. What is the catalyst for this? When does somebody come to you? Like you're talking about a client who's probably a reasonable size.
Hmm.
Uh, they have a working website. It sounds like maybe they don't necessarily want to redesign. They don't want to start from scratch. So what is driving them to say, I want the block editor?
Yeah. I mean, so the first, we did this for a number of media sites, and the big catalyst, honestly, was the last couple of years. It's just harder to get bigger budgets approved. Every company out there is scrutinizing every dollar they spend. Budgets have come way down. It's in many cases it's a race to the bottom. RFPs, like forget it. It's just so the landscape has changed significantly for agencies. It's been tough the last few years, and hosts have seen it too, right? So it's been an interesting couple of years, and we're all trying to figure it out. Is it AI? Is it everything else? Like who knows, right? It's a lot of things. So well, of course, we were pitching, hey, we could rebuild your whole site, make it modern, WordPress. We just were getting no, 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 no across the board, right? So then we said, okay, when we really got into the meat of a discussion with a couple clients, they're like, look, we really want to start using a block editor in certain sections. Is there any way we could just do that? And I'm like, well, let me talk to my team about that. Like just a very generic question. Is there a way we can just do that in certain segments? And we thought about it and we're like, oh, we think we can make it work. So we kind of got to work internally to see if we could make a proof of concept, and we got it to work. And it's actually, it took a lot longer from obviously that standpoint to even launching it for the client, let alone the product side. But it's a lot more, I think, technical than people realize, because classic WordPress, you swap your theme. There's not as much going on. Classic themes, I should say, not as much going on. Maybe some JavaScript, things you're bringing in. More modern themes, especially the Gutenberg, when that theme loads, like especially in the editor, the theme is loading in the editor. Like you said, the front end is the back end. So it's pulling in all the styles, all the patterns, all the blocks that have been customized within that theme. So we have to load all of that as soon as you switch the theme. So we have a cool video out there, right? I have our dev site, which our site's classic. It's a little embarrassing, but it's classic. Cobbler shoes and all that, nonsense. But so
Okay,
we're
I
going to
know
use
that
this
pain.
on our own. Yeah, we're going to use
Yeah,
this on our own website. So I have a couple minute video where you're on a classic page. You go down and select the block theme. And as soon as you hit save, it flips. And it's like this like, the head explode kind of emoji. It's like that. And when you see it happen, and then you see all the Ollie patterns in my example, in a couple clicks, I hit publish and I have an Ollie page, and everything else is our old site. Like it starts to really get the wheels turning of what's capable, and especially just even for a site owner to do this on their own. So it's really cool, but it really just stemmed from us trying to figure out ways to sell solutions to clients when we're just struggling to get bigger things sold. Like that's the long and
yeah,
short of it. We got creative and kind of stumbled into something, and then I started researching this, and I'm like, there's nothing out there that is doing this that works with the block editor that you can use on production. Nothing out there, right? So
yeah, sure.
we're gonna build it, and we did. So it's super
So
cool.
so
It's a lot of
it's
fun.
not necessarily that they're knocking on your door saying that they needed this. You created an opportunity based on a need that you saw that's amazing.
They had the
So
challenge of one use a block editor, but couldn't get budget approved for the full thing, and that's what
yeah,
got the idea. Well, let's figure out a creative way to get them there, in
and
a
and
unique way. We did.
and to be clear, this is also because that client wants the ability to create landing pages or create more
Block editor.
cool, whatever. They want to take advantage of the block editor, and they
Hmm.
know that the project to replace 3,000 pages on their website's a massive undertaking. But hey, at the very least, if our little department in this area could start using these cool landing pages or something,
Yeah,
I can
imagine
give
like
that power back to my employees to build these things,
exactly.
and not it saves them money and it creates business for you.
So we've done this for a couple media sites, and all we replaced was the single post template. That was it, right? So
Yeah.
header is the same, footer is the same. So you bounce around the site, you don't know, you're on a different theme. The
Yeah.
only thing that's different is all the content looks way more professional because it's block editor content, right? So now they're able to produce way awesome, better formatted articles, more media rich articles using the block editor that we love. So it really leveled them up across the board, and we replaced, one template with a new theme.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's great. Yeah. So, from the perspective of the host, is what kind of drove this whole conversation is you were
Mhm.
saying that you would love to see the host driving more information back to potential customers and clients and educating them and helping them to feel better about moving towards the block editor.
The block editor, yeah, it's like whether you use our product or get them there some other way, but I think it's about the educational around how, like the way we're talking about the block editor, like we're gushing about it, right? We're fanboys, whatever, but like, how do we get those light bulb moments to the host clients? And honestly, it's just through their own channels, and many of them, I'm sure, are doing this in some ways, but I think there's more we can be doing, right? Doing webinars, showing people there's other ways than just completely relaunching and rebuilding, because that is what people think, right? So this product is very much something we have to educate people on, because people, this has
Sure.
never existed, but like that's not the only solution now. It isn't just to rebuild the whole thing, because I get it. That's a hard sell up the chain of command these days, right? So hey, let's just
Yeah.
quit it.
Well, you just touched on something that I think is, because the whole point of this podcast, right, is to uncover the core tenets of great hosting. I just realized something that I guess I knew, but maybe I didn't necessarily put my finger on for, which is that the WordPress ecosystem has a direct line of communication with the community. But when we think about the community, it's a much smaller segment in that Venn diagram of people using WordPress, right? It's a smaller group of people that we consider
Mhm.
the community. People who show up at WordCamps, people who go on Slack, write a plugin. But WordPress, the community, the organization, the software has less of an ability to communicate directly to end customers than a host does. The host has the contact information, has the billing information, has the direct line of sight into the WP admin, has the platform, has all these
Mhm.
things and ways in which they can be the medium of communication on behalf of WordPress. And maybe it means that a hosting company should take on more of the responsibility to push feature updates, to push excitement around what's coming for WordPress and helping to channel those conversations, because WordPress, the software, doesn't necessarily have the ability to do that, especially to customers who are not using the platform today. If you're not a WordPress customer today, WordPress, the software, is not advertising to you because it's open
Mhm.
source, nonprofit, you know? Uh,
It's always had a marketing problem, right? And
right.
I mentioned we do enterprise projects. I mentioned, Adobe and Experience Manager. Like we've had situations where we're in a boardroom of a big corporation, we meaning web dev as an agency, not even there with the host, just us as an agency pitching WordPress. We leave the room, and right after us marches in 30 suits from Adobe pitching
Yeah.
AEM, and I'm like, "Well, we just got spanked, right? Like, there's no way." And they had, like, doctorate scientists with data, blah, 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 blah. Like, I was like, there's no way they're picking WordPress. Like, we're advocating for WordPress as the agency, but we're up against Adobe." So that is 100% an open source challenge that is always gonna exist, but one we can absolutely do better at, and especially at the hosting level, because you're right. There is no marketing for WordPress. Nobody's at the top of WordPress saying this is, for enterprise, it's for everybody. Like we're all kind of doing it in our own silos, and some of us doing it together, but there isn't a joint marketing or push around WordPress. There is just put a kind of a bow on that. There's a group of agencies called the Scale Consortium, and they're all well-known, established WordPress agencies. And the goal is for us to work together to put out content to push WordPress in the enterprise and to help kind of have a centralized voice to combat like the FUD around open source and is WordPress secure and blah, all that stuff. There's no centralized voice, especially on the enterprise level. So the agencies are doing it, and it's hard to get agencies together and make a bunch of executives actually make progress. But we've done some things, and we're making moves, and it's pretty cool. Another unique thing about WordPress, you see, like us at Human Made, a Big Bite, and all these agencies, Crowd Favorite, where we're competitors and we're also all friends. It's weird, but it's cool, right? Like we're friends, we're competitors, like we like the competition, but in the back channels, we want to help each other and we want to help work.
Yeah.
So it goes back to community, man. Like it's all about community.
That's amazing. That opens up a whole nother level of conversation that I would love to see. Maybe we take it to Matt or Mary or so. Yeah, I don't know. We think about a way in which the WordPress leaders, the leaders of WordPress, could be kind of like unbiased, more objectively just promoting WordPress in a room like that. It's funny because we think about it. And we say, we're promoting the heck out of WordPress. We have this great website, we documentation and community and everything else. But who's that targeted at? It's not targeted at that client that you just mentioned who's in a boardroom who's about to be pitched by Adobe. It's targeted at the communities. It's like, how do we as a community, how do we as leaders in this space think about combating those types of closed source systems? It's a really interesting bit of information.
We'll do that on the third episode here, Jesse.
I think so, because we're actually at time. So it's actually a perfect segue into calling it quits on this episode. Brad, there was so much information in this one. I can't wait to share it and point hosts to this as a resource for understanding agencies a little bit better. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is an awesome show. I think it's a really unique perspective, not one I've seen, especially, in the WordPress space too. So great show, Jesse. Thanks for having me on. And I hope everyone enjoys it. And I'm very accessible. So if anyone ever wants to reach out and say hi, just look Brad Williams, WordPress, you'll find me.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Impressive Hosting, where we uncover the core tenets of great WordPress hosting. Do you have a follow-up question for today's guest, thought or comment on anything we talked about, a future guest suggestion, a hosting horror story? What do you think makes great WordPress hosting? All your comments shape this show. Drop them on impressive.host. We also appreciate you following us on social media and subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform. Finally, do check out our list of open source projects that need support at impressive.host. Whether it's code, community, or cache, you can make a difference. See you next time.